Hey, everybody, it's Thursday morning. Faith, it's 9 o'clock, and it's time for Community Focus, the favorite part of my week. Where are we at this week, Faith?
We're in the Golden Isles this week, down there on the coast of Georgia.
And you know what? The only thing that reminds me of the Golden Isles that I've got right now is I've got this cool little sailboat back here that I bought at a Jekyll Island fundraiser. It's got a little coastal map of Georgia's 100 miles of coast and a piece of driftwood. You can kind of see it back behind me there to the, to the left of my seal. But I wish I was down there with you guys. I want to say hey to Ben Carswell. Ben, we're going to have you on later in the show talking about Jekyll. How's it going down there?
It's going great. Good morning, everyone.
Man, you get to live in paradise every day. Darcel Barant, you work with something that we talk about every week, and that is the issue of human trafficking, and you're helping women recover. So looking forward to hearing about the home that you guys run.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Tim, for having me today.
Yeah, and from the hospital, we got Adam and Sharon, and they've had their vaccine, so they can get as close as they want. It is great to have you guys from the Southeast Georgia Health System. Sharon is the HR director, and Adam is the director of physician practices. So great to have you guys.
Good morning. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for inviting us.
And we're going to get started with Ralph Staffens. And Ralph, I talked to your predecessor this week, Woody. He called me because he's trying to help some folks that want to start a bio waste facility. So I set up a meeting in Savannah in April when I'm going to be down there with his buddies. But Ralph, you took over that Golden Isles chamber. How big is the Golden Isles? What is the kind of the extent of what you guys do in terms of geography?
Yeah, so we represent all of Glenn County, Jekyll, Little St. Simon, Sea Island, Brunswick, and unincorporated Glenn County. But we're also have a lot of members and businesses that we impact regionally, right? Because we are a regional economy, and so we have a draw from several counties wide.
Yeah, so I just released this morning the Georgia Energy Con or Georgia Energy Conference registration. I'll be doing this one-day conference ahead of the Georgia Climate Conference, back on Jekyll, back live, back at the Westin and the Convention Center. Are you starting to see more traffic down there?
Absolutely. So it's great this year to watch my calendar filling up with conferences I need to go talk at instead of them coming off of my calendar, which was the case this time last year. You know, the coast, we continued to be busy last summer and through the fall as far as vacation traffic, right? There was this pent-up demand for people to want to go on vacation, but our group travel is just now starting to come back. But vacationers have been coming as busy as it can be right now for spring break and has been for a couple of weeks now.
Wow. You guys you're working on some workforce development projects. I mean, is that just trying to get your workforce where you need it to be so that you can tell companies we're ready for you? Is that the purpose of that?
Well, absolutely. So as you know, we have very large industries like GP and Gulfstream, but we have a lot of small businesses as well, even some mom and pop entrepreneurs, right? And we know that those folks, the small businesses, add just as many jobs as the bigger businesses. And so we, in conjunction with the Development Authority and the Carl Vinson Institute, commissioned a study to decide what the best way to go after improving our workforce. It's really designed to help people go from a job to a career. Right? We want people to be able to put food on their table for the people.
You know, with the big container ship that was in the news this past week in the Suez Canal, kind of blocking that and stopped international commerce for a while, it reminded me of the Golden Ray that is sitting out there in the St. Simons Sound. And, you know, Mr. Fendig, who was, I guess, the pilot driving that, through the channel, I guess it shows the wisdom of him grounding that thing over there on that sandbar instead of sinking it there in the channel. It certainly wasn't his fault that it wasn't loaded properly, but had that blocked that channel, that would have been a disaster. I mean, it's already a disaster, but that would have just compounded it, right?
Yes, Commissioner. So the ship is still in the water. There's much less of it, right, than there was to start with, but we're slowly getting it out. But you're absolutely correct. The port here in Brunswick is a huge economic driver in our community, in Southeast Georgia, for that matter, probably the Southeast United States of America. And so if that ship had sank in our channel, we would have been in a world of hurt. So who knows, right? You can play that what if game for all you want, but we don't know how bad it would have been, but we certainly know it would have stopped one of our biggest economic drivers in our community and beyond.
Yeah, it's surreal to see them cutting that. I've been just glued to videos of it because I'm never there when they actually finish it and start loading it onto a barge. But I mean, the fact that the thing was loaded with cars, right, and that they're still in there, right, and that they occasionally fall out as they cut, and they have to lift them up out of the water and put them on the barge. I mean, there's nothing easy about this.
No, there's some very smart folks out there working on this project, a lot smarter than I am. But you're right, they're cutting the chain, and these links of this chain are 8 pounds a link. So it's a gigantic chain that's slowly cutting through the metal, and then pick it up and move it. You're right. Some cars seem to fall out, but they've got an environmental netting, 2 layers of it around the ship to keep any contaminants inside that barrier so that they can get that up easily and make a minimum impact to our environment there in the Sound.
Wow. Well, Ralph, thanks for all you do down there. I'll look forward to seeing you at an upcoming visit, certainly at the Georgia Energy Conference. I'd love to have you come over and say hey to everyone August the 11th over at the Jekyll Island, Weston.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I just hope all your viewers know the Golden Isles is open for business and we're doing it safely. And we're certainly ready to have you back down to Georgia's coast.
Well, great. Thanks so much for all that you do. We'll see you soon. Hey, we're going to go over to the hospital, a place that I don't really like to go. Y'all, I am so squeamish with medical things. I mean, I fainted at an eye exam one time when that purple light came on my eye. When my wife was having her wisdom teeth out, I was in the lobby and they called me back, Mr. Echols, your wife is ready. I went back there. She was laying on a couch. You know how they stick those little bloody gauzes things. And when I saw her and she groaned, I got dizzy. The nurse looked at me and said, "Sir, you need to sit down." They plopped me in the chair where she had her teeth cut out. And when I woke up, she was finally ready to go. But they had to use smelling salts to wake me up. I just have had a hard time. But I'm telling you that the work you guys are doing to get folks vaccinated, it is a yeoman's task. And let me ask you, when you first heard that you would be establishing this vaccination clinic, what was your thought, Adam?
Well, really, the first thought is a little bit overwhelmed, quite honestly, because it's a daunting task that we're not used to, having so much demand and everybody in the community. It goes way past our normal patient load, because you think of every single person wants a vaccine, right? So, but the work quickly became so all-encompassing that you forget that it's overwhelming and you just get to see the good that came out of it. So the first thought was probably a little stress, but you quickly are proud that you're part of this.
So Sharon, other than vaccine supplies, what's the biggest challenge that you guys have faced with the vaccine clinic?
I would just like you said, initially it was just the supply and the demand, just the overwhelming demand of getting everyone vaccinated that wanted to get vaccinated, and everyone, of course, was anxious to get it as quick as possible.
Adam, is there anything that you guys would have done differently looking back now on how you started?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, when supplies were such a topic, we gave out because it's a 2-dose shot, we're using Pfizer. So you give out the first dose and 3 weeks later, you give out the second dose. And we gave all our first doses on the promise that we were going to get the second doses, which led to some sleepless nights watching the tracking, see if all of our supplies would get here. And one time they didn't. We had the winter storm that affected the South, which affected shipments. And then all of a sudden we had to delay about 700 appointments. So maybe we would do that a little bit differently. But we ended up getting people vaccinated as quickly as possible, doing it that way. But it led some stress to Sharon and I by doing it that way.
Some sleepless nights.
Exactly.
So what has the leadership of the hospital, of the Southeast Georgia Health System, what have they done to support you and to support the clinic?
The leadership has been tremendous. Mike Chernak, our CEO, has been very instrumental in leading the charge so that we could get everyone that wanted to get vaccinated quickly and in a timely fashion.
Yeah. And if we ever wanted to take a break, Mike reminded us that we didn't need a break.
That's right.
Great supporting us.
Just to get it out as soon as it came in.
Yes.
That's helpful to be reminded that you don't actually need rest. So how many vaccinations has the clinic done to date?
To date, we have done over 25,000 vaccinations.
Wow, that's fantastic. And how did you identify people to call for the vaccine?
Yeah, the good thing, we have a lot of physician practices here. So at the beginning, we reached out to the vulnerable populations. So our oncology patients, our cardiology patients, pulmonary patients, those that end up in our hospital with COVID. So we targeted those patient populations first. So we were able to get them in before we opened it up to everyone, which we were able to do about 3 or 4 weeks later.
Interesting. And how has your response from the community been regarding getting vaccinated?
I would say the response from the community has been overwhelmingly positive. Everybody's excited about being able to stay close to home and get vaccinated in a timely fashion, and just it's almost like a sense of relief once they do come in and receive their vaccine. They just feel safer and like they're more protected and doing their part to help end the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, as we wrap up with y'all, as you think about legacy of the system of your work, and you kind of think forward 10 or 20 years from now, I know it's impossible to know exactly what you're going to think, but just project yourself 20 years from now. You're retired, maybe, and you're looking back. What do you think how will you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's probably cliche, but how the community came together. 25,000 vaccinations, that's 25,000 people, or 25,000 instances where people were so thankful. And just seeing the thanks that they were for us being able to do this, it really has been an impactful thing for those of us that were actually doing it, not only for the patients, but for us as well. So that will be a long-lasting memory for me.
Yeah, well, you all, I just want to thank you for the great work that you're doing. I know that as I visit with people, I was on Jekyll just 3 weeks ago speaking at a retreat for the city of Statesboro, for Bryan County, and a couple of other groups. And I met with a number of seniors on the island because I spoke at the Rotary Club as well there. And they are so relieved to have the vaccine, to be able to have fellowship with other people, to leave their house. And I in some ways, just like giving them a new lease on life. So thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Down there, guys. I appreciate it. Hey, Faith, let's talk to Darcel Barant. Darcel is leading the charge down there with the House of Hope, Refuge of Love. And every week, Faith, we put a special emphasis on human trafficking. It's something that is really important to me and to you. So we only have 4 residential facilities in the state. We've interviewed on my radio show the First Lady about that Wellspring Living facility in Paulding County. Gigi's house has been on our bus with our Unholy Tour. Of course, the Georgia Baptists have been on our bus, but the House of Hope is the 4th and last residential facility. Darcel, tell me how you guys got started.
Well, we got started about what happened is I always knew I wanted to be part of the solution. I had worked at a mental health hospital for years. I'm an LPC, a licensed therapist myself. And I just kept seeing girls come into the hospital for 4 or 5 days and get them out of crisis, send them back to their homes, and they come back 3 or 4 months later. And I just knew that I couldn't keep doing it that way. So I wanted to be a part of the solution. So I went to the state and knew I wanted to do therapy in a non-traditional way. So I went to the state in Atlanta and found out what was their greatest need that they had for a group home. I knew I wanted to work with young ladies. And so they told me by far the greatest need they had was to have a sex trafficking safe home for youth. Ages, House of Hope does ages 12 to 17 years old. So that's our age group. And we have 8 girls. So, and we've been full ever since we've opened up. We've not had a bed open. So right now I have about 15 on my waiting list. And there's a huge need, more than our state can handle right now.
So Darcel, tell me about some of the specific challenges in working with this demographic, with girls who have been victimized by human trafficking.
So I would say the greatest challenge is getting them out of crisis mode and out of survivor's mode. When they first arrive to the house, the trauma they've been through is so significant. And just getting them stable enough to be able to work with takes us at least 60 days, sometimes 90 days, before they're not calling their pimps their boyfriends. So it takes us about 90 days until we can transition them to start understanding the reality of that, is that's not how boyfriends treat you, and that's not a boyfriend at all, and the manipulation that goes on. And I would say the greatest challenge we have is they come in with so many distortions and so many lies about who they are and whose they are. And so our greatest thing that we do is we just love on them. And what God told me very early on is my job was to create a safe refuge, an environment where they feel loved, and that he would come in and do the rest. And he has just been so faithful with every aspect of House of Hope. So it's been a blessing to just watch how his hand has been in this. He loves these girls.
Yes, he does.
How hard is it to start a facility? I mean, you've got different agencies that you're dealing with, law enforcement, I'm sure Health and Human Services to get approved, county officials. How do you get started with something like that?
I would say that's the greatest challenge. And right now I'm working with 2 people independently who are trying to open up one of these. It took me 2.5 years to get open with a lot of help I needed from like even Senator Ligon helped me get the doors open by getting my name in front of the right people to say everything's ready, the house is ready, we just need paperwork to be shuffled through. But it's a maximum watchful oversight home, so that's the highest level of a security of a home you can get outside of jail. So a lot of the times some of the girls will come right from the youth detention center or right from the streets. And so you have to have a full lockdown facility with staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have to have 2 staff on at all given times. So it's not only very hard to get open, but it's very expensive. It's about, I would say, $90,000 per child per year to take care of this population because of all the requirements the state puts on you. That's probably the greatest challenge is, and we get about, I would say, 60% of that from the state funding, but the rest of the 40% has to be raised.
Wow. Well, thank you for all that you're doing, and God bless you as you serve these girls, raise money for operations, as you try yourself to not become callous and discouraged. So we just pray for God's blessings on you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Darcel.
Wow. You know, Ben, man, as I think about the difficulty that these girls have, you know, as after they're rescued, I don't know that they ever get over being trafficked. That's a hard thing. I want to thank you, Ben. It's Ben Carswell, the Director of Conservation for Jekyll Island, and we work together a lot. We'll be at the Georgia Energy Conference together and the Georgia Climate Conference. Ben, I'm excited that we're finally going to have a live event coming up. Are you ready for live events to start back?
Oh, absolutely. We are more than ready. And thank you for having me on today. And excited about that energy conference preceding the climate conference coming up in August. And, you know, sometimes ideas get hatched on bike paths on Jekyll Island. And
yeah. Hey, Ben, there's people that'll watch this stream, later this week, wherever on Facebook or Twitter. They never been to Jekyll Island. How does Jekyll Island differ from other islands like maybe a Tybee Island that may have been on, or a Hilton Head, or Amelia Island? How is it different?
Jekyll's very unique, and I appreciate you asking that. Jekyll's a unique and treasured asset for the state of Georgia. It is public land, owned by the state and managed and operated by the Jekyll Island Authority, who I work for, which is an authority of the state of Georgia. And we are a state park, actually, although we're not part of the state park system of Georgia that's managed by Georgia DNR. We're set up to be independent and financially self-sustaining. So what that means is, although we of course partner with the state on some big projects, such as the Jekyll Convention Center and the shoreline protection project that was done recently, we don't get any regular appropriation of tax dollars for operational expenses. And so the financial stream that funds my conservation work in my department and our general stewardship and care of the island comes through the parking fee when folks arrive on the island, and other fees on the island, and money that folks spend when they're here. So it creates a really interesting balance where we're absolutely reliant. Jekyll Island is reliant on folks coming here and enjoying this beautiful place and sharing in it with us. And that's what allows us to have a limitation on development, so that no more than a certain amount of the island, about a third, can ever be developed. And the rest of the island is conservation land that we work very hard to protect.
Ben, I was at Seaside, Florida last week, doing the keynote for their Sustainable Town Planning Conference. And as I was doing the behind-the-scenes tour of the city with Larry Davis, who has worked there for 32 years, and we looked at all the people crammed into this little bitty area there at Seaside, he looked at me and said, "It's carnival time here." And it was a zoo. And one of the things I love about Jekyll Island, when Wendy and I come down, and we come down a lot because a lot of state groups have their meetings there. And so I wind up speaking at a lot of these, but we rent a bike and we ride on those bike trails all over the island. Sometimes we hardly ever see anybody. And there's so many trails. It is so bike friendly. It's not like I'm having to get out on the street and dodge cars. I've got a really wide bike path. I mean, that's a big part of what y'all sell, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a big part of it. And we have about 25 miles of bike paths that we've invested in and improving and widening over recent years, and very well maintained. Make sure the leaves and sticks are blown off of them every couple of days. And folks really enjoy that. And one of the great things about Jekyll is, just like you mentioned, there's places on the island. Even when a lot of people are here, there's places on the island that you can get to that you feel like you're in a much more remote and wild location. And so we have that variety of offerings for folks that want, some shopping and some creature comforts. And we have that too. But you can also get out there in nature and kind of get lost a little bit. You've got all those golf courses there. You've got that. I'd never been to the tennis center because it's been a while. I was on the tennis team in high school, but that's not saying a whole lot. But I went to your tennis center. I mean, those are clay courts. They're really nice, high quality. And I mean, if I was into tennis, which I probably should be, but if I was into tennis, I mean, that would be a fantastic place to play. I mean, do you find a lot of people come to Jekyll for the golf or for the tennis? Absolutely. And, the story of Jekyll Island over the past 10, 15 years has been a story of revitalization of all our amenities: golf, tennis, summer waves, the water park, our bicycle trails we mentioned. And so there's been a real vision that's been carried forward by our leadership. Our board is appointed by the governor of the state. And, if you were to come to Jekyll 20 years ago, and many folks listening, I'm sure did, a lot of the facilities were really, really worn down and really needed an update and a refresh, including our Environmental Education Center on the south end of the island, which is operated by Georgia 4-H. It's now called Camp Jekyll. And, for decades, those folks have been doing just excellent environmental education for kids all around the state and public education, but doing it out of some facilities that really weren't up to the educational talent and offerings that they were bringing to the community. And so in the Deal administration invested $17 million in updating that facility. And now it's this amazing youth environmental education and just youth education in general campus on the south end of the island that encourage folks to check out and send their kids to if they have the opportunity. That's another thing we're really excited is reopening now that we're coming out of the pandemic.
Great. Well, Ben, can't wait to see you next time I'm down. It seems like I always run into you. I mean, it's a small place, right?
It is.
I'll see you on the sidewalk at the Jekyll Island Club. Last time I ran into you at one of the sand dunes over there by Clam Creek. You were out there checking the dunes, and Wendy and I were, riding our bike along. And I said, Ben, yeah, you were out there checking the dune remediation thing that you were doing.
And I wasn't joking. That's when you first hatched the idea of the Georgia Energy Conference. So great things happen on Jekyll. It's a great place for demonstration projects, a great place for, big ideas to come to fruition and a great place for nature.
Well, I want to thank you, Ben, for being on. Darcel, thank you. Thank you for all your work. Adam, and really appreciate what you and Sharon are doing to keep folks safe down there. Faith, where are we going next week?
So next week we'll be going to Statesboro, and then the week after that, Decatur, and after that we'll be in Fairburn. Good. All right. Well, y'all have a fantastic day. I really appreciate you guys being on today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.